next trillion-dollar company. Revolutionary AI business changing the world. People called it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But here's the twist. That trillion-dollar company, it just went bankrupt. Meet Ash Mufareh, the man behind OnPassive. He claimed it would build your business automatically using AI. No skills needed, no effort, just pure passive income. Sounds too good to be true. Because it was. OnPassive wasn't a Silicon Valley breakthrough. It was a glorified pyramid scheme disguised with fancy buzzwords like AI, automation, and digital revolution. Ash promised followers instant wealth. All you had to do was invest early and watch the money roll in. Thousands bought in. Thousands called him a genius. Some even claimed he would beat Google and Shopify combined. But reality hit hard. No real AI, no real products, no real customers, just hype. And when the SEC finally investigated, they saw the obvious. There was no trillion-dollar company. Just Ash, selling dreams that never existed. What if I told you that $108 million was raised? And almost none of it went to building the company. That's exactly what happened with OnPassive. Ash Mufareh promised a full suite of apps, a Gmail competitor. Shopify alternatives. Marketing tools like ClickFunnels. Sounds impossible, right? It was. 8 years later, OnPassive had 3 apps. Barely working, not useful, just marketing gimmicks to look legit. Thousands of investors were left waiting. Investors who paid $97 each, believing they were buying a piece of the next trillion-dollar company. Ash even set up a leadership council for his followers. Hundreds of people on Zoom calls, cheering each other on, believing they were founders, not just customers. Meanwhile, the money, used for Ash and his spouse's personal expenses, luxury purchases, bank transfers. The SEC stepped in, filed a massive $18 million complaint. Ash eventually had to settle, paid $36 million in fines, and shut down the company. But here's the crazy part. Even after all of this, promoters kept hyping OnPassive. Videos, webinars, promises of wealth and success continued. This is the reality of pyramid schemes. No product, no real revenue, just endless recruitment. And the people at the top, they cash out. Everyone else, left holding empty promises. So, how do you turn an $18 million SEC lawsuit into good news? Easy. You just lie about it. That's exactly what Ash Mufareh did. After years of investigations, the SEC finally announced a settlement. OnPassive was done, finished, game over. But instead of admitting defeat, Ash went live on a Zoom call. Thousands of followers tuned in. And what did he say? He told them the case was closed, and that everything was fine. His exact words: "Today we close that chapter. The matter is closed." He made it sound like a victory. People in the comments were celebrating. They actually thought the company had beaten the SEC. Meanwhile, OnPassive was being shut down behind the scenes. Think about that. 8 years, $108 million collected. Hundreds of thousands of people believing in a fake dream. And he still found a way to spin it as good news. That's cult-level loyalty. And that's what makes scams like this so dangerous. Even after everything was exposed, the followers didn't question it. They kept posting on Facebook. They kept talking about the future of OnPassive. Some even said the media was lying. But here's the truth. The SEC report was clear. Investor funds were misused. Apps were fake. Promises were false. And now, the so-called trillion-dollar dream has officially collapsed. The fallout and lessons learned. Hook. So, what happens after a $108 million pyramid scheme collapses? Let's break it down. Ash Mufareh had to shut down OnPassive and pay around $36 million in fines. He can't be an officer or director for 8 years in any company offering securities. Thousands of investors are left with almost nothing, their $97 or more lost. Despite this, promoters continue pushing similar schemes, hopping from one MLM to another. The company had no real products, only promises, empty apps, and hype videos. The SEC finally enforced justice, but the scam ran for years, showing how long these schemes can survive. Lesson for you: always check if a company has a real product and revenue. If money comes mostly from recruiting, it's likely a pyramid scheme. And remember, flashy claims and visionary CEOs don't replace transparency and results. Closing line: millions were promised, millions were lost, and one man faced the consequences. Let this be a warning. Do your research before investing. The big takeaway. Hook. After years of hype and millions lost, what can we actually learn from this? OnPassive promised the world but delivered almost nothing. The CEO raised $108 million but couldn't build a real product. Investors were caught in a classic pyramid scheme, thinking they were founders. Legal actions finally caught up with the company, $36 million in fines and shutdown. Many promoters just moved on to the next scam, showing a pattern in MLMs. Key lesson: check for real products, real revenue, and transparency. Don't get fooled by flashy claims, visionary CEOs, or hype videos. Closing line: the next trillion-dollar company can turn into a cautionary tale. Research first, invest smart, and never fall for hype. What this means for you. Lessons from OnPassive. Hook. So, after $108 million raised, thousands of investors, and years of hype, what can we actually learn from this disaster? Big promises don't mean real products. OnPassive promised apps that could compete with Gmail, Shopify, and more. 8 years later, there was barely a functional product. This shows that no matter how flashy the marketing, check if the product actually works. Pyramid structures are dangerous. The model depended on recruiting more people rather than selling real services. If a company's revenue mostly comes from new members instead of customers, that's a huge red flag. Hype is addictive, but risky. Thousands of people kept joining Zoom calls, listening to the founder hyper vision that never materialized. This is how scammers exploit psychology and fear of missing out. SEC and legal issues are real signals. Farah faced massive fines, settlements, and shutdowns. Regulatory action is often the only way these schemes end. Investors need to watch for legal complaints as warning signs. Even successful promoters move on. The people promoting OnPassive jumped to other MLMs when it became clear the model couldn't deliver. This shows that promoters often care more about personal profit than real results. Protect yourself. Always research the founders and company history. Look for actual products and real users. Avoid too good to be true investment pitches. Never invest money just because someone calls critics haters or promotes a vision. The harsh truth: millions were lost, products were never delivered, and the hype ended with a $36 million penalty. OnPassive is a textbook example of how charisma, promises, and recruitment can mislead thousands. Closing line: the key takeaway is simple. Focus on real value, real products, and real results. Don't fall for promises of wealth overnight. Always invest smart, not emotional. The fallout: who really pays the price? Hook. The OnPassive saga isn't just about a failed company, it's about real people losing real money. Investors lost millions. Over 800,000 people invested $97 each, totaling $108 million. Most of that money went to founders and promoters, not actual products. Promises versus reality. People believed in a vision of apps and software that could rival giants like Shopify and Gmail. After 8 years, there were barely any functional products. The cult-like following, thousands attended Zoom calls, hyped each other up, and continued investing despite no results. This shows how psychology and hype can trap even smart people. Legal consequences: the SEC stepped in, and Farah had to pay $36 million in penalties and shut down the company. Even then, some promoters kept promoting the scheme elsewhere. Lessons for viewers: question every big promise. Look for real, tangible results before investing. Beware of recruitment-focused business models. Never rely solely on hype, social proof, or charismatic founders. Closing line: OnPassive is a cautionary tale. Millions were lost chasing a dream that never existed. The real winners, the scammers, the real losers, the investors. Don't be next. Final takeaways: how to avoid the next scam. The OnPassive story is over, but the lessons are priceless. Don't let this happen to you. Spot the red flags: promises of huge wealth in a short time. Focus on recruiting others instead of selling real products. Lack of transparency on finances or progress. Overly charismatic leaders who control the narrative. Check real results. Functional products, actual revenue, and verifiable success are key. If a company only shows projections, hype videos, or marketing screenshots, stay cautious. Learn from OnPassive. Investors lost $108 million chasing empty promises. 8 years of waiting produced almost nothing tangible. Legal intervention only came after massive losses. Your action plan: Research any opportunity before investing. Look for reviews outside the company's channels. Avoid schemes that rely heavily on recruitment. Trust results, not hype. Closing line: On Passive went bankrupt, and millions lost their money chasing a dream. But you can be smarter.